Okay, so I'm gonna do a video for my reflection. I said it was okay, so I hope that's okay. Um, I had a lot of births last weekend, so I got a little behind. So in my reflection, we're gonna review the cases that we went through last week. And first off, I just want to say I love reviewing cases. I think it's so helpful to sit around as a team, as other midwives with you doing like peer review. I think it really helps the knowledge for all of us to think of different style or to see different styles in students and midwives and how they approach things differently. I've definitely seen my own growth through reviewing these types of cases, so I think it's really important to do this as like a practice, as a community. It's just so helpful. So for case one, for Amy's case, she's a first time birthing person, and one thing that I noticed in her case specifically was that the father of the baby was around, but that they didn't cohabitate. They weren't really together anymore. So the biggest thing that I think for that case that I would emphasize is that like that person, Amy, hiring a doula should have been probably front and center. If she couldn't afford a doula, then that would have been like finding her someone that is, sometimes like students will do them for free because they need the births, or finding doulas in your area that will support a young parent and their birth. So that was one of the biggest things. And as we moved through the case study, I really reflected and could see how much she could have benefited from having a doula, because later on she was really struggling at 7 a.m. I think you went, and she was about 1 centimeter, and she was really struggling with contractions at that point. And as a midwife, if we stay at 1 centimeter and this birth goes on for 5 days, there's a huge risk for like us just burning out. Like you can't do that with every birth. So it brought me back to a birth that I went to about a year ago. Similar situation. I was a first time mom, and we let her labor for like 3 days. We were in and out kind of checking on her. And then we decided to like stay there. So one of the midwives stayed there, and she was there for a full 24 hours, and there wasn't a lot of, she was progressing. It was just very slow. So then someone else switched in. And then I was there for a little bit, and then me and my preceptor were there for a little bit. And by the end of it, we were all really exhausted. So that person could have really benefited from a doula. With a slow labor, there could have been more people kind of switching in and out for extra support. So that's what I want to say about Amy's, is especially the fact that she didn't have a partner. Like I don't remember in the study if the father was there. But still they're not together, so there could have been tension or a lack of connection there, and I think that would have been beneficial. So case study number 2, she was G3P1. She had a partner. She was laboring, let me just look at my notes. She was laboring on and off. She had bloody show. Contractions picked up at 1 a.m. She was moaning through contractions. You got there at 1:30, and she realized like she was in active labor, breathing heavily. I think this is a classic, let me see, G3P1. So this is a classic second time mom. We see this a lot in our own practice, how second time moms really just are like in labor. And although it took her a little bit of time, it wasn't like a 60 minute labor, it took her a little bit of time. By the time you got there, they were breathing through contractions, definitely in active labor, definitely ready for you to set up everything. So as a midwife, we've had actually 3 births in a row that I can reflect on this week. One of them I missed because I was an hour away, and the midwife showed up and she was like ready to start pushing and had her baby like 20 minutes later. So I think in a case like this, when you feel like the mom or the birthing person is moving kind of quicker, communication is really key. Jumping on a phone call at 9 p.m. to see what they're doing, or jumping on a phone call at like midnight, could be really helpful in that balance of let's not burn myself up and stay up all night in case this doesn't turn into anything. So yes, I've definitely seen like really fast labors. I think that is really common with those second time babies. I think the birthing people just think it's going to last like 24 hours like their first one did, and then it doesn't. So I think that there's a lot to be learned as a student of when do you get up and go and when do you hang back and wait. Because when I first was like an early student, my early days, and I was super green, 4 years ago, which I know isn't a lot of time, but I've learned a lot in 4 years. I was like, get up and go. And I would get there and then I'd be like, oh no, now I have to be here for 3 days. So I've learned a lot to pick up on the cues of especially like the moaning and are they opening up their eyes in between contractions and what's really happening between like that first time parent that calls and is like, I think I'm in labor. And you're like, oh no, we have a lot of time to get through before the things really kick in. So that's what I want to reflect on case number 2. Case number 3, I think this is my favorite case, G13P8, a slow labor, which is, we can see a lot too with those parents that have multiple kiddos. You think they're going to go fast. You think, oh, what's their history? Oh, their labors were 5 hours and 4 hours and 2 hours previously. And then they get to this labor and it's really like not slow, but just kind of normal. There was a client that we took care of about a year and a half ago maybe. And same thing. Her first baby was born in the car on the way to the hospital. Second baby was born at home in like 2 hours, something insane, maybe an hour. It was super quick. And the third baby, we were like, okay, like we got to get there. And we got there and it was, I think, a 12-hour labor, 10-hour labor. It wasn't anything super abnormal. And she was the type of person that her husband caught the first 2 babies, especially the one that was born in the car. He pulled over and caught the baby on the side of the highway. So he was really big. They were really big into like laboring by themselves and making sure that dad caught the baby. So this time around, she came out and was like, after like so many hours, 9 hours, and was like, I need help. Like something isn't right. Like I should be having my baby. Like I feel like I'm ready to push and all these things. And what we found was baby's head was a little asynclitic. So the baby was having a hard time coming down. So we did all these like position things in 20 minutes and baby fixed its position and was born within the hour. But it goes to show you that you can't always be standoffish and like, I'm not going to touch this person. I'm not going to bother this person, because sometimes there are some things that us as students and midwives know that can really help them. So that was a big learning experience for me for that birth, of realizing, great, even though this person has a history of super fast labors, this one might not be the same. Every single birth is different. So what are we looking at here? What are some issues that we're seeing that is not typical for this person? And that was it. Baby's position was just off, and we helped with a couple like running start positions off and on the left and right leg for a couple contractions. And also we did chest to the floor and bum up in the air to help bring baby out. And then we set her back up and then did those like running start positions, and that fixed the issue. Baby was born. So these are my reflections on the birth. I think it's super important to have communication in early labor. Really important to use texting, but also pick up the phone and call your clients. So that you can really hear them and get a feel for how they are. All right,